continue on our series of the goodness of authority in the home, we turn to the role of authority for wives and mothers. The role of women to encourage and to influence and to lead has been true from the beginning of time. Even when we go back to the Garden of Eden after Adam has been created. And right off the bat, God says, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him or suitable for him. One who is like him, is equal to him, but is able to actually provide something that is lacking," is what it means. The word helper there is used 21 times in the Old Testament. 2 times it refers to Eve herself as a helper, 3 times to the help that comes from military strength, and 16 times it refers to God himself. "I look to the hills from whence comes my help." So a wife in no way is less than, but she has a specific order or role in the marriage given by God.
And so that word helper describes part of God's design for Eve, that she would come alongside Adam, bring something into the marriage relationship that was lacking in Adam, and together Adam and Eve would collectively reflect the image of God. Both of them are equal image bearers with different attributes. But Eve's desire to help is what set up the great fall. As we know from scripture in Genesis 2 and 3, where the fall is recorded, God had given Adam specific instructions that they could go wild in the entire garden, but there was one tree from which they should not eat. Adam passed those instructions on to Eve, and where we find ourselves with Eve standing in front of the tree on that fateful day, and the serpent in the form of, the enemy in the form of a serpent, speaks to her using some of God's words, but not all of God's words. And in his distortion, Eve, probably driven by her desire to help, because remember, sin hasn't entered the world yet, listens to the serpent. She takes the fruit, she eats it, and scripture records, and she gave some to Adam who was with her. Sometimes we think Adam probably was just MIA. He wasn't around when this happened, but scripture is very clear that she handed him the fruit and he ate it. Scripture then records that God delivers the aftermath of the fall, what now will be the consequences of that. And in Genesis 3:16, he says, "Your desire will be for your husband, but he will rule over you." Or in the English Standard Version, it reads, "Your desire shall be contrary to your husband." Sometimes we think the word desire only carries with it a positive meaning, but in this context, the desire is a corrupted form of it, and it sets up a dynamic in the heart, in the DNA of all women, of Eve and every one of her descendants, that she will have a tendency to overrule, to undermine, to control, to manipulate her husband. She will always be correcting him. He will never quite do it right. It's the ongoing complaint of every couple that comes to us for counseling. Husbands who feel henpecked, who feel overruled and undermined by their wives, who feel controlled by them, who feel like they can never get it right, that they can never be good enough. And we've spent enough time in Uganda now to know that this dynamic is very, very present between husbands and wives here. We hear the exact same complaint wherever we are around the world. Then, what we read in Ephesians 5 helps us understand how we're going to correct the effects of the fall. So if you read Ephesians 5 alone, it may not make that much sense, especially in today's understanding of husbands and wives. But when you combine it with the reality of Genesis 3, that my tendency as a wife will be to undermine, to overrule, to manipulate, to control my husband, Ephesians 5 comes to my rescue and says, no. Determine as a Christ-following woman of God that you will submit to and respect your own husband. Respecting and submitting to your husband isn't just a good idea or a suggestion. It's actually a command, and it helps us in the same way that the instructions to husbands, as we heard in the previous recording, they're commanded to love their wives as Christ loved the church, not because it's easy to love her, but because they are obedient to Christ himself. To me as a wife, my command is to submit to and respect my husband. Let me quickly add here to those of you who are saying, but you don't know my husband, and my husband beats me, my husband is an adulterer, my husband takes all the money and gambles it and drinks it away. We're just going to suggest that there's great protection in this passage as well. It says, wives, submit to your husbands as unto the Lord. So a husband who is beating you does not need to be submitted to. He needs to be put on notice. You need to talk to the pastor. A husband who is committing adultery and who is being unfaithful to the marriage, you're not to submit to that. But I will say, for many of us, the rubber meets the road in just everyday interaction, where I think my idea is better, I think the way I do it is the way to do it, and I constantly, like a dripping faucet, as the Proverbs say, whine and complain and try to control my husband. And that's exactly what is being put on notice here in this passage.
And so, wives, we want to challenge you to look for ways to affirm your husband. I'll say as a husband that when Virginia says, oh, thank you so much for what you did, or I never could have done it that way, or when I feel respect from her, it is the greatest gift that she can give me. And we want to challenge you, wives, to do that. And I think you'll find out that when you treat your husbands in a respectful manner, and that includes tone, that how you address them, that they are going to start treating you a little differently as well. So the question today for wives, ask your husbands what you do that makes him feel disrespected and what you could do to make him feel more respected. And then do that, and I think you'll find that you will rejoice in God's order. God bless, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.